fountain pens and ink, one man takes on the impossible task to find the perfect paper in the pen habit.
Hi everyone, welcome back to The Pen Habit. I am Matt Armstrong, and I am going to be talking about paper today. So paper is one of those things, it's kind of part of the trifecta for fountain pens. You get the pen, the ink, and the paper. And in my mind, the paper is the one part of that trifecta that gets neglected the most. It gets talked about probably the least of the three, because frankly, it's the least interesting in many ways. Plus, I've spent some time overseas, but not enough to have a sense of what the paper situation is like there. But it's pretty dire here in the United States. It's hard to find good paper, and good paper here is quite expensive for paper's sake. So I got into paper a little bit. Probably about 6 months ago, when I discovered the University of Washington bookstore, because they had a pretty wide selection of paper, more so than any of the other places I'd ever been. I'd bought some online from different retailers and things like that, but I'd stuck with what I knew, which is the Rodia dot pad. Now, if you've seen any of my reviews, you know this is what I use to do my writing samples and my ink tests on. A couple of reasons for that. One, Rodia paper is exceptionally fountain pen friendly. It's also exceptionally consistent, which is a big deal because when I'm doing ink tests and writing tests, I want to make sure that what I'm complaining about is not the paper. It's not a difference in feel of the paper, it's a difference in feel of the nib or the ink. So because Rodia paper is very consistent and very well known and fairly readily available, it's what I use on most of my ink tests and on my ink samples and reviews that I do online. However, it is not my favorite paper. And that distinction, it's fairly new discovery, goes to paperforfountainpens.com Tomoe River paper. So I have been hearing about Tomoe River, Tomoe River paper. It's a Japanese paper brand that has gotten a lot of press in the last little while. I hadn't heard much about it when I first started in fountain pens a year ago, but a lot of people have started talking about it. So out of curiosity, a couple of months ago, I went out and I bought this pad of paper. This is from paperforfountainpens.com, run by a gentleman named Jay Potter. And it's a Japanese paper, as I said, but what differentiates Tomoe River paper from other paper is I talk a lot about in my reviews, and this is a piece of Clairefontaine paper, and this is 90 GSM, which means 1 square meter of this paper will be about 90 grams, and hopefully you can hear that in the microphone. This is Rodia paper, which is 80 grams per square meters. Little bit lighter. And this is Tomoe River paper, which is only 52 grams per square meter. It sounds very insubstantial. It feels just shy of tissue paper. It's actually quite thin, but it is not in any way, shape, or form fountain pen unfriendly. I have used this paper for all kinds of writing, letters, recipes, with really juicy pens, with flex pens. I have yet to be able to make this paper bleed. I'm not sure how they do it. It's some sort of wizardry, some sort of magic, but this paper is stunningly perfect for fountain pen use. I have yet to come across another paper I like using more. It's smooth as can be. It handles ink beautifully. I don't get bleeding. I don't get feathering. I have not had a single problem with this paper. It's what I used exclusively for NaCoWriMo in 2014. It's what I use exclusively for writing writing letters to folks, and it will very shortly become an exclusive in journaling. So I love this paper. Love, love, love. It is expensive. It's not the cheapest paper in the world, but it's, in my opinion, very, very worth the money. So let's talk about, you can get Tomoe River paper from a couple of different places, but I only have experience with paper for fountain pens. So I want to talk about Jay's products, because I think they are, even though I don't have experience with the other ones, I really like the way he has done his products. So he has a few different products. He's got these correspondence size pads, which are in the imperial system. We're looking at 6.5 or 6.25 wide by 8 and it looks like 8 3/4 wide. Not the most accurate instrument in the world. So it's standard correspondence size writing pad, and this folded directly in half will fit will fit well inside a Clairefontaine envelope, one of the smaller sized correspondence envelopes. And these come in 3-packs. I think he sells them for $19 a piece, and it comes in cream and white. Then there are the full-size writing pads, and these are in the US size 8.5 by 11, as opposed to the more internationally standard A4 size. Now, if you're international, he does have A4 sheets, loose sheets, but I don't believe he has an A4 book at this point. And this works well for me because being in the US, our envelopes are sized to this size paper. Our sheet protectors are sized to this size paper. It's hard for me to find A4 sheet protectors for my ink samples when I'm using my Rodia dot pad. So that is that. And then he sells loose sheets in both the 8.5 by 11 and A4 in both cream and white. And then there are these, and these are the journals. Now, this is a fairly skinny book. But because this paper is so thin, this book actually holds 320 pages of Tomoe River paper. It's beautifully bound. So it's got kind of a plasticized fabric on the outside. It looks like it's stitch bound, although I'm not into bookbinding, so you'll have to excuse me if I screw up the terminology. But it will lay fairly flat, not entirely flat, but I suspect with a little bit of effort, I could loosen this up a bit. Then the interiors are nice, heavy white cardstock or whatever this material is called. They are beautifully bound. Probably the most nicely bound books or journal types books I have seen. They are blank. They don't come with lines or dots. What I've seen is actually folks are using the pictures Jay has on his website, people write on them this way as opposed to this way, which is how I normally write. But I think I'm going to give this a try and just write on this page. And then when I'm done, flip it over and write on the back, go in the opposite direction. Just a really, really nice journal. When they come to you, though, they've got a construction or like a cardstock front stamp that says paper for fountain pens, wrapped in plastic with a nice hard cardboard backing. The writing pads are glue bound across the top, and the pages pull off easily, really, really easily. I am getting toward the end of this pad, and I am seeing the paper just start to pull away a little bit, but I've only got maybe 6 or 7 sheets left, so it's still on here securely. Now, the one thing I will point out is this paper is, as I have mentioned, very, very thin. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but so this is the writing test I did on my last video. And if I put the paper over it, let me see if I can show you better down here. It's thin paper, and there is show through on this Tomoe River paper. That's nothing wrong with Jay's binding or anything. This is the characteristics of the paper. But despite the fact that it is so thin, and there's a little bit of show through, you'll get no bleed through. I have yet to be able to make that happen. So it's my understanding that Tomoe River paper was actually designed to be used in catalogs where it could hold lots of ink and, keep it from bleeding through, but keep it low on weight so it wouldn't cost so much to ship catalogs, things like that, which makes this a great paper for especially sending internationally where you might have to pay extra to ship it. So this is a stunning, beautiful paper. I adore this paper. I bought it with my own money. So this was not given to me or anything like that. And I basically will not buy any other paper at this point. There's just no point, especially for writing letters and in a journal. There's just no point. I'll buy my dot pads for my ink reviews to keep everything consistent. But man, the Tomoe River stuff has won me over. Now, if you're the kind of person who can't stand seeing a little bit of show through, or you have to be able to write on both sides of the page, this might not be the paper for you. But other than that, it is a fantastic product. And while I can't speak to the other sources for this paper, I can say that in working with Jay, he's been great. His products always come through. They're well packaged. They're well shipped, and they're beautifully produced. So I have got no complaints. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and do a writing sample of sorts. I'm basically just going to grab every single one of my pens that's inked, and I'm just going to write the pen and the ink that I'm using and kind of show you how that performs on this paper, because it's pretty stellar. So I'm going to go do that, and then we'll be back to wrap up. So here we go. All right, so here we are. I will just go ahead and start working my way through some of these pens here. So the first one is my Conway Stewart Marlboro UGH with Iroshizuku Kujaku. Next we have, and that was with a fine nib. That Conway Stewart was a fine nib. Next we have a Mont Blanc 149 with a broad nib. And this is using diamine, Sherwood green, which is a truly spectacular green ink. One of my favorites. The pen that I just reviewed last night, we've got the Monteverde Impressa with a medium nib that is using diamine red dragon. Then we're going to go for one of the most infamous inks of all time. This is the ever famous, much maligned, beautifully colored Noodler's, and I don't know why I made my N like that, Noodler's Bay State Blue in a Jinhao X450 with a fine nib, and this was a replacement nib, the Goulet nib that came from. All right, the next pen on the docket is an Omas Bologna with Iroshizuku Shinkai. Then we have a pen I reviewed a few weeks back, the Stipula Etruria with a medium nib. And it's almost running out of ink, which is why I'm getting some of this railroading here. And that is using the Mont Blanc, Da Vinci red chalk. There we go. A little bit more flow. Then we have got another Monteverde pen. This is the Monteverde. Oh my goodness. I think it's the Intima Deluxe Nighthawk. Yeah. Can't believe I can't remember exactly what this is. And this is using a 1.1 millimeter stub nib. And it's a pretty wet nib. And this is using Private Reserve Chocolat. And then I've got a lot of pens inked up right now. I need to get some of these cleaned out. Move this up a bit. The TWSBI Diamond 580 in a broad nib with Noodler's Violet. And told you, a lot of pens. We've got next the Visconti Van Gogh. And this is with a fine nib. And the ink is Diamine Emerald. And finally, the true test of any paper's ink fountain pen friendliness, the my much beloved Waterman's Ideal number 7 with the red flex nib. So here we go. And I don't know how to write flex, so you'll just have to excuse me. I'm still playing around with that a little bit. And the ink on this one is Rohr and Klingner Alt Gold Grün. And just to really show what I mean here, I am going to lay it down pretty hard here. Lots of ink. All right. So there you go. Those are all the pens I have inked right now. I will cut in or add to the blog post at the end here all of the photos, close-up photos, so you can see. But there is not a lick of feathering. There is not an ounce of bleed through on the back of the paper. There's some show through, but no bleed through at all. This is a great paper. And the one thing I haven't mentioned yet is if you want an ink to sheen, if you've got highly sheening inks like, for instance, Sailor Gentle Grenade or Iroshizuku Yamabudo, put it on this paper and you'll hardly be able to recognize the original color. I used, I think it was Sailor Gentle Grenade, which has a really heavy gold sheen to it on this paper. And the sheen was so heavy, it almost turned the ink orange because it was that red color ink with the gold sheen, and the ink was almost orange because the sheen was so pronounced. So if you're looking for a perfect paper for fountain pens, in my opinion, you can't get much better than this. You'll see slightly take two. You will see slightly longer dry times because the ink doesn't soak into the paper. Which if you're going to be writing fast or you're an overwriter, a left-handed overwriter, that may be problematic. But for the most part, if you're an underwriter and you can pull a sheet off and set it aside, I cannot recommend this paper highly enough. So that's going to do it for this review of the Tomoe River paper products from paperforfountainpens.com. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And please, especially if you're watching this in March of 2014, head over to penhabit.com because there's going to be a huge giveaway of some paper products. I reached out to Jay, told him I was going to be doing a review, and asked him if he'd be interested in doing a giveaway. So he has graciously donated a whole bunch of stuff to give away. So head over to penhabit.com to find the entries. It'll probably be up sometime in the first week of March. So hope you have enjoyed this video. As I said before, if you have any questions, ask them down below. All the links to my social media spots are down there as well. And we will see you here next time on The Pen Habit. Bye.